Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh and we have the first Sigma New Hero 31 teaser now on the Overwatch Twitter. Just not very long ago we saw Jeff Kaplan start a fictional developer update, then get sucked into what seemed to be a black hole, and then a bunch of formulas and equations and diagrams cover the screen to a bunch of classical, slightly sinister sounding music. So I'm going to quickly run you through an analysis what these things actually mean in as simple and quick way as possible. I am no astrophysicist and that is indeed what these are about, so that is a big clue as to what Sigma is probably going to be related around, and chat through quickly a couple of theories. I released a theory video, by the way, detailing loads of Sigma theories a few hours before this teaser went live, and some of it, particularly the last 6-7 minutes, is really related, so do check that out. I've linked it here and in the description below. But first things first, here is the teaser.
What's up, everyone? This is Jeff from the Overwatch team. I am so excited about today's developer.
There we have it. So what does it all mean? Well, after a bit of Googling, as I'm sure everyone has been doing, of the various formulae, we have a few common trends, and I will explain these very quickly. Most of them are to do with astrophysics or particle physics. Now, v squared equals gm over r. This is an expression, a version of Kepler's third law of planetary motion. Now, Johannes Kepler, a famous German astronomer, mathematician, and astrologer, he was a very key figure in the scientific revolution around the 17th century, and did a lot of work around the foundations of what would then become Newton's theory of universal gravitation. Keep that in your head. I think that's going to be very relevant to what kind of hero Sigma is going to be. Now, Kepler's third law is, me as a layman very simply explaining it, it's to do with the time of an orbit to the radius of an orbit of an object around a point, around a body, if the object is circular. So basically it can be used to find the consistent speed v of a satellite revolving around an object in a circular orbit of radius r, where g is the gravitational constant and m is the mass of the center of the orbit. So in this case, let's say the Earth. The other, m equals a v squared r divided by g, is a different expression, but you're using it in a similar way to find the mass of the object. So let's say a star is orbiting a set distance from an object like a black hole, and we know the velocity, how quickly that star is moving. Can we calculate the mass m of the object that it's orbiting? Another one there is v root 2gm divided by r. This is actually the formula for escape velocity, the minimum velocity or speed that allows a smaller body to escape from another body. So, for example, a rocket escaping the Earth's gravity. That can be calculated with this formula. G, the gravitational constant again, r, the distance from the center of the body with a mass of m. So let's say the center of the Earth with a mass of m if you're firing a rocket into space. Now, if you're an astrophysicist, physicist, mathematician, please do correct me on that. I am no expert, but I've tried to distill it the best I can. And the diagram we see at the very end is apparently an example of a Feynman diagram. Now, these particular diagrams are used as pictorial representations of the mathematical expression of how subatomic particles behave. So this is moving into sort of visualizations of the maths of particle physics as well. So on one side we have kind of astrophysics here, which is very much a discipline of Kepler and similar. On the other side we kind of have particle physics as well. In terms of other applications of these laws and formulas, well, one of them is, for example, space travel and going to Mars. The simplest way to travel between some planets is to let the sun's gravity do the work, and by using Kepler's laws of orbital motion, you can put a spacecraft into a particular orbit around the sun. One end of the orbit would be the Earth at launch, and the other end would be the other planet at the opposite end of arrival. So it's using the gravity of the sun, putting a spacecraft into a particular orbit to use the sun's gravity to steer it in the right direction, as far as I understand. I see it like slingshotting around something, and that's probably a totally inadequate and incorrect sort of analogy, but that's how I kind of see it. So what does this teaser all mean? Well, if we put it together with what appeared to be Jeff being sucked into some kind of, I like to see it as a black hole or a highly sort of gravitational point, shall we say, then those formulas and similar all seem to be pointing to a physicist, a scientist, an astrophysicist maybe, if the Kepler stuff is to be believed, and some kind of relationship to particles, and indeed that seemed to be, it wasn't a graviton, but it seemed to be sucking things in a way, or sort of moving things kind of like a graviton. So we already have Zarya and Graviton Surge, of course, but who could Sigma be, and what could their relationship be? Is it to that technology, or is it something entirely different? Or could it still be something to do with particle physics or gravity, just in a different way to Zarya's tech, for example? Someone must have invented Zarya's tech. Maybe, just maybe, Sigma was something to do with it. So the real question is Sigma a tank? How could the tanking work? And could Sigma be the talon tank? So how do you end up being a talon tank? Is it another stereotypically brilliant turned evil turned amoral scientists? But then Moira's kind of already fit that space. So I do wonder whether we have a slightly more chaotic version of some kind, like a Junkrat in terms of the chaotic version of Junkrat being, I don't know, chaotic neutral, shall we say, and Sigma perhaps being chaotic evil. I don't know. Maybe there's a little bit less reason and rhyme in his actions, but we'll see what happens. I guess whether he's affiliated to Talon or not, whether he's a tank or not, I think we could see how maybe an astrophysicist or a particle physicist could have some very, very cool applications as, say, a DPS hero, or maybe a support hero. How about a tanking hero, though? Well, I like coming back to this idea of what we've seen as being, an attempt at sort of seeing stuff sucked into this black hole-y style thing that we have going on, maybe rather than the graviton surge, or not, maybe it's a more extreme version. If you have a little look at black holes, they sort of suck everything in but leave something outside their event horizon, like this bunch of material, a sort of bunch of spinning matter. You can't see the black hole itself because obviously light gets sucked into it, but you can see the material just on the edge of the event horizon, the edge of it, called the accretion disk. Accretion in astrophysics is accumulation of particles into a massive object by gravitationally attracting more matter, normally gas, into this accretion disk. And most astronomical objects, apparently galaxies, stars and planets, are formed by this accretion type process. So whether you maybe imagine a DPS sort of sucking in bullets, sort of light, if it's a laser weapon or something like that, and then finding a way to sort of spit it back out as a weapon or something like that. That could certainly be a DPS ability. Could it be a tanking ability? Think of D.Va's defense matrix. Is this a way of blocking some selected other abilities in a tanking fashion in the way that D.Va's defense matrix does if it was a tank? I can see certainly support applications if you were, for example, trying to protect people with this material that you were sort of bringing together, accreting together. Whether it was a tank, DPS or support hero, I can certainly see a lot of interesting ways in which, these astrophysics or type concepts, particle physics concepts, could be put into sort of a hero's kit. And I'll leave you in one final thing that I've literally just sort of spotted here. And it's kind of a contradiction between the formula that we've been displayed and the sort of slightly sinister sort of juddering of that diagram at the end, and the visual effect that we saw on Jeff. Now, all of the formula, if you stand back and look at them in a real basic layman's term style way, and that's just how I'm seeing it, we've got escape velocity, that's getting away from something. The other formulas, Kepler and things like that, they're all used in terms of velocity and in terms of orbits. So it's kind of trying to get away from stuff in a way, in a very, very general way. That's a gross simplification. Escape velocity is certainly trying to, make sure that your rocket can get out of Earth's orbit and get into space and get in the right orbit. You can use Kepler's third law, as I said, to sort of try and work out how you're moving spaceships, satellites, things from one location in the universe to another. But we see, with the visual sort of expression of Jeff being kind of sucked in and things. Again, I read a description around a black hole. Due to the extreme gravity around a black hole, an object in its gravitational field experiences a slowing down of time dilation. From the viewpoint of a distant observer, an object falling into a black hole appears to slow down and fade, approaching but never quite reaching the event horizon. Finally, at a point just before it reaches the event horizon, it becomes so dim it can no longer be seen due to time dilation. Like, to me, just reading that, and I've quoted the source in the description below, it just feels like a really good description of, or the best possible description of, that visual effect that we've just seen around Jeff. So we've kind of got a contradiction here. We've got formulas that are trying to escape velocity being one of them. So whatever this scientist, Sigma, is working on, they're trying to sort of escape and sort of calculate this kind of stuff. And then we've, at the same time, got the sort of bringing back in of this black hole style effect around Jeff's visual, and then the slightly sinister display of the diagram at the end. So is this something, tried to escape, but then something else has happened? Has there been some kind of problem? I don't know. But either way, an astrophysicist, particle physicist hero, who may or may not be a tank, who may or may not be a talon tank, that just sounds really, really cool to me. So what do you think? What are your theories? I'd love to hear in the comments. This is, of course, big speculation, but I think these formulae are sort of a big, big clue. Formulae, even, indeed. And I think that astrophysics, particle physics are certainly something to do with what Sigma does. It's just working out how that could express itself into a kit and what class he is, and of course the rest of his lore and story. You know, how did he get to this point? Can't wait to find out. Thanks very much for tuning in. If you like this video, throw a like, subscribe, check out all of my other Overwatch lore interactions, voice line videos, as well as my recent news coverage that I do from time to time as well in the videos and playlists here. Not very long before this teaser came out, I actually released a 15 minutes going into all of the different theories and speculation around Sigma, including some of my own and some of the popular community theories as well. So do check that out. I've linked it here as well. For those of you who tune in for Overwatch lore, well, with a new hero, we've got a bunch of other stuff coming out, and I'll have some new Overwatch lore videos and other things coming soon. So thanks for your patience, and do keep an eye out on the channel. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.